Funny, isn't it? You can study for years, graduate with honors, collect degrees, certificates, awards with your name in gold letters, and still quietly, you struggle to pay the bills. Still, you lie awake some nights wondering why all that. Knowledge never turned into freedom. You did what they told you. You followed the rules. You were the smart one, the one they said would make it. And yet, here you are, tired, unsure, living paycheck to paycheck. It doesn't feel fair. But maybe the problem isn't your effort. Maybe it's what? You were trained to value that. You see, school teaches you how to answer questions. But life doesn't ask you questions. It gives you choices. And the choice most people make, the one they were trained to make, is to chase approval, not wisdom. To chase titles, not skills. To chase safety, not freedom. That's where it starts. You were taught how to memorize, how to pass, how to fit in. But you were never taught how to build. How to turn knowledge into money. How to use money to buy time. How to use time to build something of your own. They told you education was the path. But they never explained the kind of education that matters, because real education, the kind that makes you wealthy, the kind that changes your life, doesn't come with a diploma. It comes with decisions. It comes with mistakes. It comes with the slow learning of who you are. And what the world will never give you just because you're smart. That's a hard thing to accept, isn't it? Especially when you did everything right. But let me tell you something I learned too late. Being educated doesn't mean being free. You can be educated and broke. You can be educated and afraid. You can be educated and still waiting for permission to live. I've seen men who never finished school build fortunes with their hands and courage. And I've seen men with 2 master's degrees sit quietly in jobs they hate, too proud to admit they're stuck. You don't get rich because you're smart. You get rich because you learn how money moves. And you learn how to move with it. And that's not taught in school. They teach you how to obey, how to please, how to fit in. But wealth? Wealth requires you to stand out, to think differently, to do what others won't. And most of all, wealth requires that you unlearn the idea that credentials equal competence. Unlearn the lie that good grades will protect you. Unlearn the quiet fear of failure that school drills into your bones. That fear is still there, isn't it? You hesitate to take risks. You overthink everything. You wait for someone smarter to give you permission. You've been trained to be a good student. But life doesn't reward students. It rewards creators. It rewards those who move before they're ready, who try and fail and learn with dirty hands and scraped knees. You were taught to avoid mistakes. But mistakes are how the wealthy grow. Every lesson costs something. The poor fear the price. The rich pay it gladly. So no, you're not poor because you're not intelligent. You're not poor because you're lazy. You're poor because you were trained in a system that rewards compliance, not courage. That praises answers, but never teaches questions. And here's the quiet truth. You've mistaken education for preparation. You thought knowing would lead to doing. But knowing is not the same as becoming. The world doesn't care what you know. It cares what you can do, what you can build, what you can risk. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop waiting for your intelligence to save you. It won't. Only your decisions will. Only your willingness to unlearn and begin again will. And that takes a different kind of strength. A strength they never put on a report card. Not yet. But you feel it now, don't you? That itch in your chest. The quiet voice whispering, There's more to this than what I was taught. You're right. There is more. But to find it, you'll have to let go of what you thought would save you. Your education was a tool, not the answer. And it's time to learn the things that school never touched. We'll begin there next time. You were taught to wait, weren't you? Wait your turn. Wait for the right moment. Wait for someone to notice your effort, your talent, your potential. It started young. Raise your hand. Don't speak out. Follow instructions. They told you that good things come to those who wait. But they never told you that wealth comes to those who move. Now you sit, degrees on the wall, titles on your resume, and still you wait. You wait for the right job. You wait for a raise that never comes. You wait for things to get better. But nothing changes because no one told you that the system you were educated in was never designed to make you wealthy. It was designed to make you useful to others, to companies, to governments, to industries that need smart people but don't want them too free. So they trained you just enough to be valuable, but not enough to be independent. They told you how to write essays, but never how to write invoices. They told you how to pass exams, but never how to pass wealth to your children. And now, here you are, qualified, capable, exhausted, still poor, because you were trained to wait for permission. And the wealthy? They don't wait. They don't ask, am I ready? They ask, what's the first step? They don't need approval to move. They move and approval follows. You, on the other hand, were taught to collect qualifications and hope they'd be enough. But a certificate doesn't open doors. A degree doesn't build equity. And intelligence without boldness is a kind of prison, a silent one. You sit behind glass walls made of shoulds. I should be doing better by now. I should be further along. I should be making more with all this education. But the truth is, no one is coming. No dean, no boss, no mentor from the past. No one is coming to unlock the life you thought would arrive just because you were smart. It's up to you now. To stop waiting. To stop believing that someone, somewhere will tap you on the shoulder and say, you're ready now, go ahead. No, you're not poor because you're not worthy. You're poor because you were taught that worthiness had to be proven, that you had to earn your right to take up space, to speak up, to start something of your own. But the truth is, the wealthy never wait to be chosen. They choose themselves. They see opportunity where others see risk. They act while others hesitate. They fail faster, and therefore they learn faster. And the most dangerous part? You don't even realize how much you've been taught to hesitate. You think you're being careful, but really you're being conditioned to believe that if you just work harder, just do a little more, someone will reward you. But wealth doesn't come to the hardest worker. It comes to the one who understands leverage, and leverage doesn't require more hours. It requires a different mindset. You're still thinking like an employee, even when you're not at work. You ask, what should I do? Instead of what do I want to build? You ask, who will hire me? Instead of how can I create value and capture it? That's not your fault. It's how you were trained. But if you want to stop being poor, you'll have to unlearn the idea that your life is something someone else gives you. It. ISN single quotes D. You are not a position. You are not a resume. You are not your degrees. You are a builder. But no one ever showed you how to build. So you waited. And while you waited, others moved. While you perfected, others launched. While you planned, others practiced. While you studied, others sold. And now the question is simple, but hard. Will you keep waiting, or will you move? Even before you feel ready? Because ready is a feeling, and feelings follow movement. You don't become free by knowing more. You become free by doing what you were never taught. By choosing without permission, by moving without certainty, by becoming who you were never trained to be. And that journey, it begins when the waiting ends. Will continue there. Next time. You've been taught to be smart, but not to take ownership. That's the quiet difference no one talks about. Smart people get good grades. Smart people follow instructions. Smart people wait for assignments, deliver results, and collect praise. But ownership? Ownership means something else entirely. Ownership means, if it fails, it's on me. If it succeeds, I'll carry the weight. If no one shows up to help, I build anyway. And most people, especially the educated, have been trained out of that. You see, it's easy to feel smart in a system designed to give you marks, metrics, gold stars. But when the system ends and life begins, there are no more grades. Only outcomes. No one tells you that. No one warns you how deeply dependent you've become on being told what to do. Even now, you feel it, don't you? That pull toward structure. That voice inside whispering, just tell me the right path, and I'll follow it. But wealth doesn't work like that. Wealth doesn't follow a syllabus. It doesn't come with lesson plans. It doesn't hand out certificates of completion. Wealth comes when you stop waiting for someone to grade your performance, and you start measuring your impact. What can you build? What can you sell? What value do you bring, without a title to back you? That's where it gets uncomfortable, because it's one thing to be smart in a classroom. It's another thing entirely to be useful in the world. And being useful means risking something. Your time, your ego, your certainty. You were never trained for that. You were trained to have the right answers, not to ask the scary questions. Questions like, what if I'm not as capable as I thought? What if no one cares about my degree? What if I have to start over, and that's okay? Most people avoid those questions their entire lives. They hide behind diplomas, behind job titles, behind the safety of I'm doing my best. But if you want to stop being poor, if you want to be free, you'll need to do something most educated people never learn to do. Own the outcome, not the effort, not the intention, the outcome. That means no more blaming the economy, no more blaming your industry, no more blaming your background, your boss, or your bad luck. Is that harsh? Maybe, but let me tell you this. The moment you take full ownership of your financial life, that's the moment you begin to change it. Not because it's easy, but because now, finally, the wheel is in your hands. You can steer. You can pivot. You can build. But as long as you believe the outcome is someone else's responsibility, you stay stuck. Smart, but stuck. Capable, but cautious. Educated, but enslaved. And here's the bitter truth. A smart slave is still a slave. They just use better vocabulary to explain why they haven't escaped. I know that sounds harsh, but I say it with love, because I lived it. I was praised for being clever, being articulate, being full of potential. And for years, I wore that praise like a crown. But behind closed doors, I was broke, too proud to admit I didn't understand money, too ashamed to ask how people built things, too conditioned to believe that if I just kept learning, things would change. But they didn't, because I wasn't owning anything. I was a well-read, well-spoken man, sitting in the passenger seat of my own life, and the road only changed when I got out, walked around, and grabbed the wheel. That's what I'm asking you to do. Not to abandon your education, but to take control of it. Not to reject your intelligence, but to demand more from it. To use it, not just to perform, but to create, to risk, to lead, because the world doesn't need more educated people waiting for directions. It needs more brave ones, willing to own what they build, even if it breaks, even if it fails, even if no one claps, because freedom starts with ownership. And ownership starts the moment you stop asking, what should I do? And you start asking, what will I create, no matter what? We'll walk deeper into that next time. You've worked hard. No one can deny that. You put in the hours. You followed the rules. You stayed up late finishing projects that no one remembers now. And maybe deep down, you thought that effort alone would be enough. That if you just kept showing up, doing more, giving more, eventually, life would repay you. But it hasn't, has it? You're tired. Still chasing. Still wondering when it all starts to feel fair. But here's the thing no one teaches you in school. Effort doesn't equal ownership. You can pour your life into someone else's vision and walk away with nothing. That's the trap. They praise your dedication while they keep the equity. They applaud your loyalty while they grow their freedom. And you keep showing up, telling yourself it's noble to work hard, telling yourself you're being responsible. But what you're really doing is renting your life out by the hour. And no matter how much rent you charge, you'll never own the house. That's why you're still poor, even though you're smart, capable, and committed, because you confused contribution with control. They gave you a job, not a stake. They gave you tasks, not territory. And deep down, some part of you knows it. You see people with less education, less experience, making more, building things, living freer, and it bothers you. Not because you're bitter, but because you know you could do more. If only you knew how. But here's the truth. No one's going to teach you how to build wealth while you're busy helping them build theirs. That's a lesson you'll have to claim for yourself. And it starts by asking the hard questions. Not, how can I get paid more for what I do? But, how can I start owning the value I create? Not, how can I be indispensable to my boss? But, how can I stop needing a boss at all? That shift from contributor to creator is where your real education begins. But to take that path, you'll have to let go of something. You'll have to let go of your comfort in being told what to do. Let go of your identity as the smart one. Let go of the illusion that effort alone will change your life. Because effort without ownership is just exhaustion. You're not lazy. You're trapped. And the trap is invisible because it looks like success. You have the job, the title, maybe even the house and the car, but no freedom, no peace, no real control over your time, your choices, or your future. That's not success. That's a golden leash, and the key to unlocking it isn't more hard work. It's new work, work that you own, value that you direct, decisions that you control. But that requires something rare. It requires you to step off the path you were praised for and walk into the unknown. No applause, no guarantees, just you and the quiet belief that your life is yours to build. And I won't lie, that's hard, especially when you've been told your whole life that the safe path was the smart path. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just the quiet path to a comfortable cage. And now, your mind is starting to rattle the bars. You feel it, don't you? That soft rebellion rising in your chest. That quiet voice whispering, I want more than this. Listen to that voice. It's not greedy. It's not foolish. It's the part of you that remembers. You weren't born to serve systems. You were born to shape them. And no matter how educated you are, that power only wakes up when you stop confusing effort with ownership. We'll go further together next time. There's something else we need to talk about now. And it's delicate, but important. You see, sometimes the very thing that keeps you poor is the part of you that believes you're too smart to be poor. Strange, isn't it? That your education, your intelligence, can quietly become your limitation. It happens quietly, over time. You get praised for being bright. You start to believe it. You carry yourself like someone who should be further ahead than they are. And then, when life doesn't match that image, you start pretending. Pretending you're doing better than you are. Pretending you understand things you don't. Pretending you've got this, when deep down you don't. And the more educated you are, the harder it becomes to admit what you don't know. Because you're supposed to know, right? You're the one who figured things out. The one who solved problems. The one who passed the tests. But life doesn't give out grades. And money doesn't care about your GPA. Money only responds to your ability to create, serve, and multiply value. And if no one ever showed you how to do that, you're left with two options, learn or hide. And many people, proud, educated people, choose to hide. They hide behind titles, behind busy schedules, behind books and big words and polished conversations. But the numbers don't lie. Their bank account stays small. Their freedom stays limited. Their heart stays restless, because deep down, they know they're not living the life their potential once promised. And that gap between who they thought they'd be and who they really are, it hurts. So they avoid it. They stay in jobs they don't love, because at least the job respects their resume. They avoid starting something new, because failing would feel too embarrassing. They nod and smile in rooms where everyone's talking about money, pretending they understand. In silence, they worry that they missed something. Worry that they're falling behind. Worry that it might be too late. It's not. But to change direction, you'll have to lay something down, your pride, that quiet little voice that says, I shouldn't be struggling, not me. That's the voice keeping you poor, not because it's arrogant, but because it keeps you from asking. And if you don't ask, you don't learn. If you don't learn, you don't grow. Nothing changes. The ego of the educated is subtle. It doesn't shout, it whispers. I'll figure it out on my own. I'll wait until I'm ready. I just need more time. But time keeps passing, and freedom doesn't come. So here's what I've learned, the hard way. It's better to look foolish for 5 minutes than stay stuck for 5 years. It's better to ask dumb questions than keep pretending you already know the answers, because your future doesn't care about your pride. It only responds to your humility and your hunger. The hunger to grow, to start again, to say, I may be educated, but there's still more I need to learn. That's not weakness. That's strength. That's what the wealthy know. They're not afraid to say, teach me. They're not ashamed to fail in public. They don't pretend. They practice over and over again. That's how they learn what school never taught. That's how they get rich, slowly and honestly. So if you're poor and educated, don't let your pride make it permanent. Get curious again. Get humble again. Become a student again. but this time of the real world, of money, of value, of freedom. The classroom has changed, but the lessons are waiting, and the only question now is, are you still pretending? Or are you ready to begin? We'll keep going from here. Next time. It all sounded so reasonable, didn't it? Get good grades. Go to a good school. Get a good job. Stay out of trouble. Play it safe. That's what they told you. And you listened. You thought, if I do everything right, I'll be taken care of. And maybe for a while. It looked like that was true. A steady paycheck, benefits, a title on your door. But somewhere along the way, you started feeling something else. That quiet pull in your gut. That sense that you were moving, but not going anywhere. You work all day and still worry about money. You wake up early and still feel behind. You do everything right. And yet, the life you dreamed of keeps slipping further away. And you wonder why. The answer is simple, but not easy. You chose the safe path. And the safe path is the most dangerous trap of all, because it doesn't look like failure. It looks like being responsible. But here's the truth. The safe path keeps you small. It teaches you to manage, not multiply. To survive, not to build. To obey, not to create. And most dangerously of all, it teaches you to fear anything that feels uncertain. So you avoid risk. You avoid discomfort. You avoid any road without a map, even if that's the road to freedom. Wealth doesn't live on the safe path. It lives on the edge. The edge of uncertainty. The edge of bold decisions. The edge of everything you weren't taught in school. No one told you that the greatest rewards in life come from the things that feel risky at first. Starting your own thing. Investing before you're ready. Saying no to a job that pays well, but costs you your soul. They don't teach that in the classroom. Instead, they teach fear in a fancy disguise. They call it stability. They call it success. They call it being realistic, but really, it's a cage, a comfortable, respectable, socially approved cage, and you don't notice it. Until one day you look around and realize you've built a life you can't leave, a job you can't quit, a routine you can't break because it's safe. But what has that safety cost you? Your time, your energy, your dreams? There's a kind of poverty that looks like a paycheck, a kind of poverty that wears a suit, that smiles politely in meetings, and cries quietly in traffic. I've seen it, I've lived it, and let me tell you something, there's no safety in a system you don't own. The job can disappear. The rules can change. The ladder you've been climbing can vanish overnight. You've seen it happen. Smart people, good people, let go without warning, and that's when they realize the safe path wasn't safe at all. It was just familiar. And familiarity can feel like safety until the storm comes. So I ask you gently, have you mistaken comfort for security? Have you mistaken predictability for peace? Because true security, the kind that lasts, doesn't come from a job. It comes from having the skills, the courage, and the mindset to create your own path. That's what no one taught you. And that's why you're still poor. Not because you didn't try. Not because you're not intelligent. But because you were educated to avoid risk. And risk is where wealth lives. Now. This doesn't mean you throw everything away overnight. It doesn't mean you burn bridges or make reckless choices. But it does mean this. At some point, you must leave the safe path. Not all at once. Not with a bang, but with a quiet decision. I will no longer mistake obedience for progress. And from that decision, something shifts. You begin to see opportunity where you once saw fear. You begin to build, slowly, surely, your own foundation, and over time, that foundation becomes freedom. But first, you must step off the well-worn trail and into the world that no classroom could prepare you for. We'll continue from that place next time. You know a lot. Let's start there. You know how to study. You know how to analyze, explain, interpret. You know history, theory, systems, structure. You've spent years accumulating information, and still, money slips through your hands like water. Why? Because what you know isn't making you rich. It's not that knowledge has no value. It's that not all knowledge leads to wealth, and most of what you were taught was never meant to. You were trained to know things that make you reliable, employable, respectable, but not free. No one taught you how to see money, how to attract it, how to use it, multiply it, protect it. They taught you how to think, but not how to earn. They taught you how to write reports, but not invoices. They taught you how to debate ideas, but not how to price your time. So, you became smart, but not wealthy. And now you wonder why people with half your education seem to thrive, while you barely keep up. It's because wealth doesn't come from knowing. It comes from doing, from execution, from motion, from putting something into the world that people value. You see, knowledge is potential, but wealth is kinetic. It moves, it compounds. It grows when it's applied, not admired. And that's the trap for many educated people. They admire knowledge like art. They collect ideas like books on a shelf. They keep learning, but never use what they know to create change, not in the world and not in their own life. You tell yourself, I just need to know a little more before I start. But that moment never comes, because knowledge has become your hiding place. A comfortable cave, a way to feel competent without having to risk. But here's the truth. You don't need more knowledge. You need more action. More conversations, more attempts, more failures. Yes, because failure teaches what school never could. You won't think your way to wealth. You'll act your way there. By trying, by building, by charging, by failing, by adjusting, by staying in the game when others step back into the safety of theory. That's the pivot from information to transformation. And that pivot only happens when you stop asking, what do I know? And start asking, what will I do with what I know today? Because the person who takes action with half the knowledge will always outperform the one who knows everything but moves nothing. That's hard to hear when you've built your identity on being smart, when you've been praised all your life for how much you know. But the world doesn't reward the well-informed. It rewards the useful, the bold, the persistent. That may sound unfair, but it's actually freeing, because it means you don't have to know everything to get started. You don't need the perfect plan. You don't need anyone's permission. You just need the courage to use what you already have. Right now, today, even clumsily, even imperfectly, because motion creates clarity, and clarity brings wealth. So let this be the beginning of a new kind of learning. Not the learning of theory, but the learning of movement, of money, of risk and reward, of action and adjustment. Because what you know won't change your life. What you do with it will step into that movement. Next time, you were promised something, weren't you? Not in words, but in the way the world was laid out before you. Study hard. Get the grades. earn the degrees, follow the rules, and the system would take care of you. A good job, a fair wage, a steady path, a retirement plan. So you kept your head down. You followed the blueprint. You did what they told you would work. And for a while, it seemed to. The paper on the wall, the polite nods, the job offers. But now, you're educated, exhausted, and still broke. And deep down you're wondering, did I miss something? Or was I misled? Let me tell you something hard. But healing, you didn't fail the system. The system failed you, not because it's broken, but because it was never built for you to win. It was built to produce workers, not owners, employees, not entrepreneurs, obedient minds, not free ones. It rewards consistency, not creativity, compliance, not courage, credentials, not cash flow. So here you are, smart, skilled, and stuck, because you were taught to wait. Wait for approval. Wait for promotion. Wait for someone to pick you. But wealth doesn't come to the one who waits. It comes to the one who moves, who sees through the silence, and chooses to build something that cannot be taken away. That's the truth nobody told you. You've been waiting for a system that isn't coming. Not for you. Not the way you hoped. It gave you structure, but not sovereignty. It gave you safety, but not security. Because real security doesn't come from a salary. It comes from ownership, owning your skills, owning your income, owning your decisions. But school never taught you that. It trained you for dependency, trained you to fit in, not stand out, to memorize, not monetize. So now, you must unlearn what was never true. You must reclaim what was always yours, the power to create, to sell, to serve, to earn. Not by waiting, but by moving. See, many people spend their most capable years waiting for something that looks like fairness. They believe that if they keep showing up, the system will notice, will reward, will lift them, but it rarely does. Because the system wasn't built to notice your worth. It was built to measure your output. And when that output no longer serves, it replaces you. So you must build something the system cannot replace. That may sound overwhelming. But here's the quiet freedom. You already have what you need, not in your resume, but in your resilience. Not in your degree, but in your decisions. The system made you wait. But now, you don't have to. You can act, you can charge, you can build. You can reclaim what was promised in whispers, but never delivered. Because while the world rewards the educated, it elevates the empowered. And empowerment begins the moment you stop waiting. Next time, we'll talk about that power and what it really means to build wealth on your own terms. You've been taught that your value lives in what you know, in how much you've studied, in the weight of the papers you carry, the titles after your name. And sure, knowledge matters. Learning matters. But here's the quiet truth no one says aloud. Knowledge doesn't build wealth. Decisions do, because you can have 1,000 facts in your head and still make one choice that keeps you poor. You can be brilliant and broke, educated and exhausted, sharp-minded and still unsure how to use it. Why? Because you were never taught to act, only to understand, to analyze, to perform. But not to choose, not to risk, not to sell, not to ask, how do I turn what I know into something that pays me back? See, most poor but educated people live in their minds. They study the game, but never step onto the field. They know what success looks like, but not what it feels like. They read the books, They take the courses. They collect information like treasure. But they forget, information isn't income. And knowledge, left unused, becomes a burden. It makes you heavy with potential, but light in results. Deep down, you know you're capable. And that gap between your mind and your money, it starts to haunt you. Let me offer you something simpler. You don't need to know more. You need to do more. With what you already know, that one idea you've been sitting on, that skill you've mastered in silence, that insight you could teach others in your sleep, that's where your wealth lives. Not in something new, not in another degree, but in the decision to start to charge, to teach, to sell, to offer. You see, the world doesn't pay you for what you know. It pays you for the results you produce, the value you create, the problem you solve. But if you stay in the classroom of your own mind forever, you'll never step into the marketplace of real wealth. This is why many people with less education, less experience, less polish, are living richer, freer lives than you, because they made the decision you haven't yet made. To stop preparing and start producing, to stop perfecting and start offering, to stop waiting and start asking, what can I build with what I already know? That's the quiet turning point. Not another certification, not another year in school, but a shift in how you see yourself, not just as a thinker, but a builder. Not just as educated, but empowered. Your decisions must catch up to your knowledge. That's when your life will begin to change. So ask yourself now, gently but honestly, if I already know enough, why haven't I built something yet? And if not now, then when? You don't need permission. You need a beginning, and you already carry everything you need to begin. In the next part, we'll talk about why so many people stay stuck right here on the edge of action, yet never jumping. There's a certain kind of fear that shows up after education. Not the fear of ignorance, but the fear of not living up to what you know. You've spent years sharpening your mind, building a polished image, becoming someone others expect to succeed. And now, the idea of failing feels unbearable. You see, when you're uneducated, no one expects much. And so you take risks, you build, you try. But when you're educated, people expect you to already know, to already be doing well, to already have something to show. And that pressure, that silent weight of expectation, it paralyzes. So what do? You play it safe. You stay small. You say things like, it's not the right time. I'm still learning. I need a little more preparation. But the truth? You're scared to look foolish, scared to lose status, scared to admit, I don't know how to turn this knowledge into income. And so, you stay stuck. Not because you're lazy, not because you're ungrateful, but because you're afraid of the drop from educated to beginner. You've built a strong identity, but now, that identity is in the way. Let me tell you something you might need to hear. You don't have to pretend anymore. You don't have to act like you have it all figured out. You don't have to impress anyone. What you do have to do is get honest. Honest about the fear. Honest about what you still haven't done. Honest about the fact that knowing something isn't the same as becoming someone. Because growth will ask you to get uncomfortable, to look clumsy again, to risk your pride. And maybe that's the real block. Your pride is louder than your hunger. Your image matters more than your future. You'd rather be seen as smart than admit you're still learning how to be wealthy. But here's what I've learned. The people who win, the ones who break free, aren't the smartest. They're the bravest. They ask dumb questions. They try things before they're ready. They fail in public. And they keep going, because they'd rather look messy now than live small forever. You're going to have to let go of being the best in the room and become a student again, not of textbooks, but of life, because the world doesn't pay you for looking polished. It pays you for being useful. And usefulness comes from action, not intellect. So today, the invitation is simple. Trade your fear of looking foolish for the freedom of starting fresh. That's the path from poverty to power. In the next part, we'll talk about the quiet lie you've believed your whole life, the one that's kept you waiting for something that was never coming. There's a lie you were told, and you believed it because it sounded so noble. The lie said, if you work hard, stay patient, and do the right thing, someone will notice. That's it. That's the trap. You were taught to wait to be chosen, wait to be promoted, wait for your turn. Wait until someone says, you're ready now. And so you've been waiting, polishing your resume, taking more courses, being reliable, being respectful. But life doesn't reward the obedient. It rewards the initiators. The ones who stop waiting, the ones who create their own permission. You see, somewhere along the way, education taught you a subtle message. Play by the rules, and good things will happen. But here's what they didn't teach. The rules are designed to keep you in the system, not to set you free. They trained you to be a good worker, not a free thinker, not a builder, not an owner. So now, every time you feel that inner spark, that desire to start something, try something, own something, a quiet voice pulls you back. Be careful. Don't rock the boat. Stay grateful. Keep waiting. And that voice, it doesn't come from your wisdom. It comes from your wounding, from years of sitting in rows, raising your hand, asking for permission, and being rewarded for following the script. But the real world isn't a classroom. It's not a test with right answers. It's a field. And no one's coming to call your name. You have to step forward. Start the thing. Say the words. Take up space. You're not here to be a quiet expert in the back of the room. You're here to lead your own life, because you'll never be wealthy if you keep waiting to be discovered. You have to discover yourself. That's the real work. To unlearn the waiting. To stop hoping someone will see your worth. To decide, finally, that you are the one who gives yourself permission. So many educated people stay poor, not for lack of talent, but because they never realized you don't get picked. You pick yourself. That's what turns the tide, not more degrees, not more approval, but the courage to move. Even when nobody claps. The good news? You don't need anyone's applause. You just need to stop holding your breath. There's no one else coming. And strangely, that's the most freeing truth of all. In the next part, we'll talk about how education trains you to depend on systems that were never designed to make you rich, and how to break that quiet dependency once and for all. You ever notice something strange? The longer you stay in the system, the less you question it. You stop asking why. You stop looking for the exit. You just keep moving from one stage to the next, like it's all been decided for you. We're trained this way. First school, then more school, then the job, then the title, then the loan, then the house. Then the waiting. It feels like progress. But it's a treadmill. Quiet. Predictable. Exhausting. You think you're climbing a ladder, but the ladder is leaning on the wrong wall. And the higher you go, the more trapped you feel. Funny, isn't it? All that education, yet no one taught you how money works. All those credentials, yet no one taught you how to own your time. All those lectures, yet no one said, hey, the system wasn't built for your freedom. Because it wasn't. It was built for stability. Not for wealth. For keeping you functioning. Not for helping you thrive. Think about it. If every educated person became wealthy, who would fill the cubicles? Who would follow the rules? Who would keep the machine running? They don't need you to be poor. They just need you to be dependent. To stay inside the lines. To keep showing up. To keep waiting for the next promotion, the next raise, the next approval. And so, most people stay right there, smart, polite, capable, and quietly broke. Because here's what they never tell you in school: wealth doesn't come from playing the game well. It comes from building a different game, from seeing the system not as your savior, but as your starting point. Education is meant to open your eyes, but for too many, it shuts the door. They get comfortable in titles, in systems, in validation, and they forget how to think like an owner. Because owners don't wait for permission. They don't need a syllabus. They don't follow someone else's career map. They build. They risk. They act. And that shift from dependency to ownership is the moment things start to change. Not overnight, but deeply. Because now you're no longer asking, what job will let me survive? You're asking, what life am I here to build? That question, it doesn't come with grades, or applause, or certainty. It comes with freedom. And freedom has always been more valuable than education. But no one told you that. Not until now. In the next part, we'll talk about why your fear of being wrong is the final chain, and how letting go of that fear might be the doorway you've been looking for all along. Let's be honest now. What's holding you back isn't just the system. It isn't just the habits. It's not even the money itself. It's fear, a quiet fear, not the kind that screams. The kind that whispers, what if I mess up? What if I make the wrong move? What if people see me fail? You spent so many years learning the right answers. You forgot how to take the real risks. Because in school, there's always one answer. One formula, one path to a perfect score. But in life, in wealth, there are no perfect scores, only movement. Only choice. Only consequences you can learn from. And the truth? Wealth requires being wrong, not once, not twice, but many, many times. You will invest in the wrong thing. You will start something that doesn't work. You will say yes to the wrong people. You will lose money, time, pride, but you will gain wisdom. And that's what builds wealth. Not correctness, but courage. See, educated people often wait for certainty. They want the research, they want the map, they want the guarantee. But wealthy people, they move without it. They bet on themselves. They understand that the only way out is through. You can't think your way into wealth. You have to live your way there. You have to step forward even when the outcome isn't clear. And that's hard, isn't it? Because for years you were rewarded for being careful, for coloring inside the lines, for waiting your turn. But now, here in the real world, those same habits hold you hostage. You're sitting on ideas, but doing nothing. You're dreaming of freedom, but waiting for proof. You don't need more proof. You need more motion, because clarity doesn't come from thinking. It comes from trying, from stumbling, from course correcting. That's the game no one taught you to play, the game of becoming. I know, it's scary, because being wrong feels like failure, but I'll tell you something. Every rich man I know has a trail of mistakes behind him, decisions that didn't work, plans that collapsed, ideas that flopped, but he kept going. And that's the difference. The educated man gets stuck in shame. The wealthy man gets back up. Which one are you? If you're still poor, even though you're educated, maybe it's not because you lack knowledge. Maybe it's because you fear what knowledge can't control. And until you let go of that fear, you'll stay stuck in the comfort of knowing. Instead of stepping into the risk of growing. Next time, we'll talk about one more chain no one dares to name, how your pride in being not like them has quietly kept you broke. You've told yourself this story, haven't you? I'm not like those people chasing money. I'm not greedy like them. I value integrity, knowledge, meaning, and you wear it like a badge. Like it makes you better somehow. Smarter, more evolved, more righteous. But here's the quiet truth. That pride is costing you, not because it's wrong to value meaning, not because it's wrong to walk with integrity, but because that pride has turned into a wall. A wall between you and the wealth that could serve your purpose. A wall between you and the people who could teach you something new. A wall between you and the very life you say you want. You've convinced yourself that you're above the money game. But really, you've been afraid of playing it. So instead of learning it, you judged it. Instead of stepping into it with humility, you stepped back with superiority. And now, you're still broke, still struggling, still explaining to yourself why your values are more important than your results. But listen to me, gently. Good values don't pay the rent. Noble ideas don't feed your children. Integrity doesn't mean anything if it's tied to survival. What if you could be both? What if you didn't have to choose between meaning and money? What if the real path was to use your mind and your spirit, to be wise and wealthy, to do good and do well? It's not either or. That's the lie you were told. And maybe that's the lie you keep telling yourself to avoid the discomfort of growing into someone who owns both. You think the rich are all shallow. You think they only care about things. But let me tell you something. Some of the wealthiest people I know give more, love more, serve more than anyone you've ever met. Why? Because they can. Because they built the capacity to give, not just in heart, but in resources. And you? You're sitting on talent, on gifts, on ideas that could help thousands. But you're too proud to market them, too proud to charge what they're worth, too proud to be seen as one of those people. So you stay small, you stay broke, you stay different. But let me ask you, different from who? The ones who tried, the ones who learned, the ones who dared to face the discomfort you're avoiding? Maybe the real strength isn't in being different. Maybe it's in becoming whole, not one who judges wealth, but one who builds it with character. Not one who hides behind ideals, but one who brings them to life with power, with vision, with means. Poverty doesn't make you moral, and money doesn't make you evil. It's what you do with it that tells the truth of who you are. And if you're still poor, after all your degrees, all your books, all your clever words, maybe it's time to lay down the pride and pick up the tools. In the next part, we'll look at what happens when your loyalty to the past becomes a chain around your future. Stay with me, we're almost there. It's a quiet kind of trap, This loyalty to where you came from, you don't even notice it at first. You just call it respect. You say it's about being real. You say, I don't want to forget my roots. But somewhere along the way, you stopped honoring your past and started obeying it. You stopped growing. You stayed close to people who never left the old neighborhood. You stayed stuck in the same ideas your family passed down, even when they didn't work, even when they brought pain, even when they kept you small. You hold your tongue at the dinner table because you don't want to sound better than. You say no to the better opportunity because you don't want them to think you've changed. But here's the truth. You have changed. And that's not a betrayal. That's the point of life. You were born to evolve. And if your education did anything, it was supposed to open your mind, not just to facts, but to freedom. Not just to certificates, but to choices. And now, you're using that mind to justify staying small. You say things like, my people don't do that. I wasn't raised that way. That's not how we think. But what if how you were raised is the reason you're still poor? What if the love you feel for your background is quietly becoming a cage? I've seen it 1,000 times. A man with big vision shrinks it to fit into his family's comfort zone. A woman with boundless skill keeps playing small because her friends say she's getting fancy. You don't want to outgrow them. You're afraid they'll leave you, or worse, you leave them. So you stop yourself. You slow down. You dim your light. You pretend you don't want more. And all the while, your soul is aching. Because you do want more. You do see things differently. You do feel called to something beyond what they understand. But you won't answer that call because you're still trying to belong to a version of the past that no longer fits. It's like wearing the clothes you wore as a child and wondering why you can't move freely. Growth demands release. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean you forget where you came from. It means you honor it. By going further. By breaking the pattern. By becoming the one who makes it out so you can reach back, not with guilt, but with strength. You want to lift others? Then stop clinging to the place you were trying to rise from. Don't confuse comfort with loyalty. Don't confuse staying with caring. The real care, the real love, is in showing what's possible, and that may mean walking a path that no one from your past understands yet. That's okay. You're not abandoning them. You're evolving for them. And one day, someone younger will look at you and say, if she could do it, maybe I can too. If he made it out, there must be a way. You don't need to carry everyone. You just need to walk your truth, boldly, gently, fully, even if it leads you away from everything you once called home, even if it makes you different. Next, we'll talk about something just as quiet, but even more dangerous, the invisible ceiling built by shame. Stay close. There's a silence most people carry. You can feel it in their eyes, even when their mouth is smiling. A kind of heaviness. A quiet shame. It's not the shame of doing something wrong. No, it's older than that. It's the shame of being something wrong. You were told, directly or indirectly, that someone like you, from where you're from, with the skin you wear, with the name you carry, doesn't belong at the table of wealth. So even when you get close, you hesitate. Even when you qualify, you doubt. Even when you've earned your way in, you still feel like a fraud. The shame isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It whispers, you're not one of them. They'll find out you don't belong. You got lucky. Don't ask for more. And here's the cruel part. The more educated you become, the more polished your speech, the more impressive your resume, the louder that whisper sometimes gets. Because deep down, you haven't made peace with your origin story. You're still hiding from it, still apologizing for it, still trying to cover it up. But you can't build wealth on top of a foundation of shame. Because shame makes you self-sabotage. It makes you reject money even as you chase it. It makes you undercharge, overgive, and say yes when you mean no. It makes you feel guilty for wanting more, as if ambition is betrayal, as if success is some kind of theft. Let me say something clear, so it breaks through the noise in your head. You are not unworthy because of where you started. You don't owe anyone an apology for trying to rise. Your past is not a stain. It's a seed. It's not your weight. It's your witness. And the shame you feel, it was never yours to carry. It was handed to you by a system that benefits when you stay small, by a culture that feared your power, by a history that told you success has a certain accent, a certain face, a certain pedigree. But that was a lie. You don't need to fake your way to wealth. You need to face your way to it. Face the shame, face the voices, face the lies that dressed themselves as humility. And then let them go. Because real humility isn't about thinking less of yourself. It's about seeing yourself clearly, without the fog of fear. You're not a mistake. You're not an outsider. You're not lucky. You're worthy. And if you could breathe that truth into every decision you make, from how you price your work to how you walk into a room, you would begin to move different. You'd stop playing poor just to make other people comfortable. You'd stop shrinking just to fit into stories you've already outgrown. You'd stop asking for permission from people who never saw your value to begin with. Because here's what no one tells you. The only difference between rich and poor isn't education or luck or even talent. It's this. The rich believe they deserve to be there, and the poor often don't. That's the wound we need to heal. Not just your bank account, your self-worth. In the next part, we'll talk about something that hides beneath even your confidence. A poverty of imagination. What if the real reason you're still poor is because you've never truly seen what's possible for someone like you? Let's go there. You can't build a house you've never seen. You can't walk a path you don't believe exists. And you can't grow wealthy if you've never truly imagined yourself free. That's the quiet crisis, isn't it? Not a lack of education. Not a lack of credentials. But a deep, hidden poverty of imagination. You believe in the rules. You believe in hard work. You believe in sacrifice and struggle. But what you don't believe in, not really, is a life of abundance that fits someone like you. You were taught to play it safe. Taught to be humble, quiet, grateful. Don't ask for too much. Don't dream too big. Don't get ahead of yourself. And so your imagination stayed small. You didn't design a life. You settled into one. You didn't build your own ladder. You climbed the one they gave you, even if it only led to the ceiling. And then you wonder why, after all these years, you're still stuck in the same room. The truth is simple. You're not just living inside your job. You're living inside your beliefs. And if those beliefs are small, your life will be too. That's what no diploma teaches you. That your outer world rises only to the level of your inner vision. And if your vision stops at survival, you'll never touch wealth. I've seen men with doctorates who still flinch at charging what they're worth. I've seen women with 2 master's degrees who never once imagined working for themselves. I've seen brilliant, gifted people spend A lifetime trapped in someone else's blueprint, because they never dared to draw their own. That's the tragedy of poor imagination. Not that it lacks ideas, but that it lacks permission. And until you give yourself permission to think bigger, to dream differently, to build something that looks nothing like what you were handed, you'll keep recreating the same limits with new labels. Here's a hard truth. No one's going to hand you a bigger vision, not your boss, not your government, not even your parents. That's your job now. To stop waiting for someone to show you the way and start imagining one they've never seen. Because the ones who become wealthy, not just in money, but in freedom, are the ones who are willing to imagine the unfamiliar and walk toward it anyway. So I'll ask you plainly, have you really let yourself imagine a rich life? A life of ownership, not obedience. A life where your time is your own. A life where you earn through impact, not hours. Have you? Really? Because if you haven't, then that's where we begin. Don't just learn new skills. Learn new visions. Don't just fix your habits. Fix your picture of what's possible. And don't just upgrade your degree. Upgrade your permission, because what you've been calling realism might just be fear wearing a tie dot in the next part. Let's talk about something most people never notice. You've been taught to consume knowledge, but never to own it. And that, too, is a silent reason you stay poor. Let's uncover it. You've spent your whole life learning. Books, lectures, seminars, degrees hanging neatly on the wall. You know a lot of things, but the truth? Knowledge that's never applied doesn't lift you. It weighs you down, like a bag full of unopened tools. You carry it everywhere, impressive to look at, but useless in the hands of someone too scared to build. That's what no one told you, did they? That knowledge alone isn't power. It's potential power. Unused, it just becomes another thing to hide behind. You say, I just need one more course. I just need a little more time. I'll start after I read this next book. But deep down, you're not preparing. You're postponing. You're not learning to move forward. You're learning to stay safe. It feels productive. It feels noble, but it's another trap. Because one day you wake up and realize you've been a student your whole life, not of life, but of delay. See, poor people can become addicted to consumption, not just material things, but intellectual ones too. They consume, but don't create. They study, but don't start. They collect insights, but never build anything real. They hide in ideas because action would expose them, and the longer they wait, the heavier that knowledge becomes. Like bricks of guilt, you should be doing more with what you know. Like mirrors of regret, you had the tools all along, but never picked them up. And it hurts, because deep down, you know you're not poor because you lack information. You're poor because you never used it. And every year that passes, you wonder if maybe it's too late. Let me tell you something, and listen carefully now. You are not too late. You are just too hesitant. And hesitation has cost you more than ignorance ever did. The truth is, the most successful people you see out there, they don't know more than you, but they used what they had, even when they were scared. Even when it was messy, even when they weren't sure it would work. And you waited. You made sure it was perfect. You got another certificate. You watched another video, but nothing changed. So here's what I'll tell you. Start before you're ready. Speak before you feel qualified. Build before you feel prepared. Because action, even imperfect action, teaches. You more than any book ever could. And more importantly, it breaks the spell of poverty thinking. It shifts your identity from the educated poor to the empowered creator. That's where the change begins. Not in your resume, but in your rhythm. In how you move. Not just how you think. Because if knowledge was all it took, libraries would be full of millionaires. But they're not. They're full of potential. Just like you. And potential that goes unused. That's the saddest kind of poverty. In the next part, we'll talk about what your job never taught you. How trading time for money keeps you broke, even if your time is highly educated. And how real wealth comes from learning how to escape that trap. Let's keep walking. You were taught to earn, but not to escape. You were trained to trade your time, your energy, your one life for a paycheck. And because you're educated, they gave you a bigger one. They called you successful. They called it a good living. But they never taught you to look deeper. Because once you do, you see it. The trap is still the same. You can dress it up with degrees, pad it with promotions, tie a necktie around it and call it professional growth, but it's still a cage, a smarter cage, a quieter one, but a cage nonetheless. That you give them your hours. They give you money. But if you stop showing up, the money stops too. That's not wealth. That's dependence. It looks respectable. It feels responsible. But it is not freedom. You see, real wealth is not about how much you make. It's about how much you own, how much time, how much autonomy, how much value you've created that works without you. But no one taught you that, did they? No professor stood at the front of the classroom and said, "Be careful, even a high salary can be a golden leash." No one explained that the system rewards your education because it needs your labor. They trained you to be efficient, to be productive, to solve problems for someone else. But they didn't teach you how to build your own. They didn't teach you how to separate time from income, how to invest, how to own, how to create something that lives beyond your hours. So you stayed trapped, comfortably, respectably, trapped. You told yourself, "At least I'm not struggling like them. At least I have a stable job. At least my degree is paying off." But listen closely. If your money depends on your body showing up, you are not free. If your income resets to zero every Monday morning, you are not wealthy. If your job disappears and your life collapses with it, you were never secure. Just sedated. And no, this isn't your fault. It's the rhythm you were handed, the script you were taught to follow. But now, you know. And knowing is dangerous to systems that thrive on your silence. So here's the quiet truth. You don't escape by working harder. You escape by building smarter. Not overnight. Not all at once, but one choice at a time. A skill that earns even when you sleep. An asset that grows whether or not you're present. A shift from employee to owner. That is the turning point. It's not rebellion. It's remembrance of the part of you that was never meant to live on a leash. In the next part, we'll talk about what schools really rewarded, and why the very traits that got you good grades might be the same traits that keep you broke. Yes, we're going there. Meet me on the next step. Now let's talk about school. Not the subjects, not the degrees, but the hidden reward system underneath it all. You were praised for being quiet, for following instructions, for raising your hand and waiting to be chosen. You were rewarded for obedience. Not for curiosity, not for risk, not for rebellion, the kind that builds empires, You learned to color inside the lines, to memorize, not challenge, to please the teacher, not question the system, and over time, that shaped you. They called you smart when you got the right answer. They called you gifted when you finished on time. But they never asked, can you think for yourself? Can you spot a broken system and walk away? Can you fail and still keep going? No, those weren't part of the test. You see, school wasn't designed to make you free. It was designed to make you functional, to make you useful to someone else. It prepared you for a job, not for freedom. It trained you to climb a ladder, not to question why the ladder exists in the first place. So now here you are, educated, obedient, still broke. You did everything they said, and yet, money slips through your fingers like water. Why? Because in the real world, wealth doesn't reward obedience. It rewards ownership. It rewards courage, initiative, the ability to do what hasn't been done, even when no one claps. But school never taught you that. It taught you to wait for approval, to wait for the test, to wait for permission. And wealth doesn't wait. It doesn't ask if you have a diploma. It asks if you can take a hit and get back up. It asks if you can think clearly when things fall apart. It asks if you can build, not just complete assignments. That's why so many educated people are broke. They're waiting to be told what to do, waiting for a path, waiting for a promotion that never comes. They know how to pass tests, but they don't know how to choose themselves. Let that sink in. You can have all the credentials in the world, but if you still need permission to start, you'll always be late. And if you still need praise to move forward, you'll always be small. The system trained you to behave, but wealth requires you to become something else entirely. A risk taker, a thinker, a builder, and you don't need another certificate for that. You just need to remember who you were before the training, that raw, curious part of you. The one who asked, why does it have to be this way? He's still in there. She's still alive. In the next part, we'll talk about something even deeper. Why so many educated people hide behind their knowledge, but still feel poor on the inside, and how money often reflects not your learning, but your level of self-trust. We'll go slow, but we won't hold back. You look around at your life, and it doesn't match the promise you were given, not even close. You have the degrees, the certificates, the long nights in fluorescent classrooms, the discipline, the ability to think clearly, speak well, analyze deeply. And yet, here you are, staring at a bank account that doesn't grow, living with decisions you wouldn't have imagined when you were still in school, waking up to a life that feels smaller than the one you trained for. And so, a dangerous seed begins to grow, not out loud, not in front of anyone, but in silence. It starts as a whisper. Maybe I'm not as capable as I thought. Maybe I don't deserve more. You wouldn't say it out loud. You wouldn't even admit you feel it. But it's there, woven through your choices, sewn into your hesitation, hiding inside every time you hold back when you should move forward. You think it's humility. You think it's wisdom, but it's fear. And it's costing you. See, poverty doesn't always show up as empty pockets. Sometimes it shows up as empty courage. You've been trained to doubt yourself, not by accident, by design. The system taught you to follow, to seek the right answer, to wait for permission, to fit into frameworks, pass the tests, and please the authorities. And when you did all that, when you did everything right, and still didn't get the reward you were promised, you didn't blame the system. You blamed you. That's the silent cruelty of this path. It turns thinkers into hesitators. It turns dreamers into overanalyzers. It turns builders into workers, always building for someone else. Not because you're weak, but because you were taught to trust the structure more than your own spirit. You want to know why you're still poor, even though you're educated? Because somewhere along the way, you stopped trusting your own voice. You stopped taking risks. You started making decisions based on fear of loss instead of vision for gain. And your life began to shrink to the size of your doubt. You call it being realistic. But I'll tell you what it really is. Survival dressed up in smart clothing. You look successful on the outside, but inside you've gone quiet. The courage you once had to try, to fail, to figure it out has been buried beneath rules and routines, and the world is happy to keep you there, because a person who doubts themselves is easy to manage. They don't speak up. They don't leave jobs. They don't ask for more. They stay where they're put, and no one teaches them how to find their way back. But I will start here. You were never broken. You were simply taught to doubt your own power, and to call it being smart. You sit there now, maybe quietly, maybe with a weight in your chest you haven't named yet, because deep down, you know this isn't just about money. It never was. It's about the quiet ache that comes from knowing you were meant for more, and not knowing how to reach it anymore. All that education, all that discipline, all that sacrifice. And somehow, you still ended up feeling like you missed something essential. But listen to me now. And listen well. You are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are not permanently stuck. You are not your salary. You are not your job title. You are not your resume. You are a builder. You always were. But no one told you that you were allowed to build your own thing. They trained you to plug in, to find a job, to join a structure, to depend on someone else's vision. But there's a reason you still feel restless, that quiet hunger in your soul. It's not a problem. It's a map. It's the oldest part of you remembering who you were before the world told you to play small. See, you were educated in systems, but no one educated you in ownership. No one taught you how to own your vision, your time, your risk, your reward. So let me be the one to tell you now. You don't need permission to change direction. You don't need a second degree to trust your instincts. You don't need a new job to build a new future. You need to remember who you were before the world made you afraid. Before you exchanged your boldness for obedience. Before you decided safety was more important than becoming whole. You are not poor because you're not smart. You are not poor because you're not educated. You are poor, maybe, because you stopped listening to the part of you that dared to create. And that part is still alive, still waiting, still whispering. Maybe today is the day you hear it again. Maybe today is the day you stop trying to fit into someone else's mold and start shaping a life that actually fits your soul, quietly, patiently, courageously. No more excuses. No more waiting. No more shrinking. You've seen what education can give you. Now go find out what you can give to the world. Asterisk. If this woke something up in you, pass it on to someone else who's been sleeping too long. Let them remember who they really are. Because the world doesn't just need more smart people. It needs more people who own what they know. And that might just be you.